morning, everyone, and welcome to June 2022. I can't cope with the fact that COVID has taken away years of my life. Real Estate Live UK programme. And thank you very much for joining us for this session, which is Mid Sussex, a place of partnership. The Real Estate Live UK programme takes place 3 times a year as a free virtual conference, although we have broken with tradition tomorrow as we'll travel to Liverpool for an investor roadshow, but you will still be able to see all our main plenaries online. Today, we are fully virtual, and I'm delighted that we will be finding out more about the strategic growth and regeneration plans for the place where I grew up and where I'm enjoying watching it transform into a vibrant modern region, which is putting long-term sustainability at the heart of its economic plans. This morning's session follows closely on Mid Sussex's previous REL appearance when we heard how the district was creating a sustainable 20-minute neighbourhood, delivering new homes, employment and education spaces, as well as transport and digital infrastructure. Today, we'll hear the latest on how that's progressing, along with the opportunities it presents, as well as find out more about Project Newton, which is Mid Sussex's planned science and technology park. Just before we start, I'd like to remind you, the audience, to feel free to ask questions using the Zoom's Q&A function, as we will be able to put those to the delegates as this session progresses. And now I'm very pleased to hand over to our chair for this session, James Chaffer, Chief Executive of the UK Science Park Association, UKSPA.
Thank you, Jo, and welcome all to Real Estate Live. It's great to have so many attendees on this sunny summer morning. So in this panel session, we're going to be focusing on Mid Sussex, a place of partnership. As Jo's already said, my name is James Chaffer. I'm recently appointed Chief Executive of UKSPA, UK Science Park Association. UKSPA is a membership organisation with approximately 140 science, technology and innovation parks in membership across the UK. So turn to Mid Sussex. It's got a well-established culture of partnership working. The local authority has a new sustainable economy strategy, which recognises this strength and focuses on the 3 key themes, the 3 Ps, people, place and partnerships. So as Jo said, the format of this session is an interactive panel. We've got 4 very knowledgeable panelists, and we want to make sure this session is as engaging as possible. So if you do have burning questions, please feel free to ask. We're keeping the chat function for social chat, but put all your questions into the Q&A function, and I will try to get to as many of them as possible. We've put aside the second half of the session for a fully interactive Q&A with audience questions. And please don't forget, there's no such thing as a silly question, so get asking. So without further ado, let me make some formal introductions to the panel before we get underway. So today, as I said, we've got four panelists. So we've got Nathan Spilsted, who's the Regeneration and Economy Programme Manager at Mid Sussex District Council. Welcome, Nathan. We've got Suzanne Holloway, who's partner at Bale Williams, Graham Hislop, who's Projects Director South at Homes England, and last but by no means least, Rachel Beryl-Gray, who's Marketing Manager for the Adelphi Group of Companies. So welcome all, and let's get started with. So I'm going to ask some introductory questions, and we'll jump in and start the conversation. So Nathan, if I can turn to you first. As I mentioned in the intro, you've identified that partnership working is important in delivery of sustainable communities. I wonder if I can just ask you to give us an overview of how the sustainable economy strategy will encourage sustainable economic growth.
Thank you, James, and good morning all. Just waiting for the slideshow to appear on the screen. Here we go, Lovely. Thank you, James, and good morning all. I think before I come on to how Mid Sussex will achieve sustainable economic growth, it is important to get a sense of what we're trying to achieve, working with many others, some of whom are kindly sitting on the panel today. New slide, please, Chloe. So what are we trying to achieve? In a nutshell, what we are seeking to achieve is sustainable economic growth for the benefit of all those who live and work in Mid Sussex. The new Sustainable Economy Strategy for Mid Sussex, or the SES, sets a clear vision, a vibrant district that is attractive, resilient and innovative, that balances social well-being, environmental protection and sustainable economic growth. New slide, please, Chloe. So we believe achieving sustainable growth is about having the right strategy framework or a clear roadmap to guide the delivery of sustainable communities. And the SES sits at the heart of this framework. It sets out Mid Sussex's ambitions and provides a renewed focus on sustainable growth, with the aim of driving the green recovery following the pandemic. It is informed by the National Build Back Better agenda, the government's decarbonisation and net zero ambitions, and is underpinned by the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Rather uniquely, it now combines our economic strategies and plans with our sustainability strategy. It has a short life to 2025 and is adaptable to changing circumstances, emerging policy and new technology to reflect increasingly fast change. And importantly, it enables partnerships to deliver sustainable communities. New slide, please, Chloe. So how does it do this? The SCS delivers under 3 key themes: people, place and partnership, with a total of 14 separate objectives. These objectives are cross-cutting and include maintaining high employment rates, opportunities for skills, encouraging business startups, enhancing digital infrastructure, promoting sustainability practices and actions to support carbon net zero, providing commercial and employment space, and ensuring Mid Sussex is an exemplar council in promoting effective partnership working. So partnership working is central to the SCS. Importantly, it has also been developed with partners and stakeholders from the public, private, community and voluntary sectors, as well as directly with residents. The 14 objectives are delivered by nearly 50 actions, including clear timescales and partner organisations that will lead on and participate in delivery. It is an ongoing recognition at MSDC that change can only be delivered by working effectively in partnership with others. As can be seen in the diagram, Mid Sussex plays many roles, but it's important and recognise that facilitating and enabling this approach adds value, avoids duplication, and ultimately encourages wider public or private sector engagement and, crucially, investment. And this approach will in turn further strengthen partnerships. So here at MSDC, we've very much adopted an open door policy whilst recognising our statutory duties. And we want to take a central role with others where we can enable and facilitate, support or influence. And then only then can the 50 actions be realistically delivered and the high levels of growth at MSDC be balanced to achieve sustainable economic growth and deliver sustainable communities. New slide, please, Chloe. So in summary, working in partnership expands what we can influence and genuinely involve others, and ultimately what we achieve. It can be demonstrated by working with businesses such as Adelphi, who choose to locate or expand their operations here. Through the visioning and placemaking work with Homes England on the Northern Arc at Burgess Hill, and through the work with the promoters of the Science and Technology Park to deliver a regionally important, innovative employment hub. The latter schemes both being part of the Burgess Hill Growth Programme. New slide, please, Chloe. Those of you that attended the February Real Estate Live session will have heard the ambition programme of change that Mid Sussex, working in partnership with others, are looking to implement over the next 15 or so years. Here and in other places, Mid Sussex is punching well above its weight. The Burgess Hill Growth Programme alone looks to deliver over 5,000 homes and create 5,000 new jobs in the town of Burgess Hill, a growth rate of 3% per annum, which is big in anyone's book, and a portfolio of 20 to 30 projects at any one time under delivery. The programme has attracted huge levels of inward investment. For instance, £60 million of local growth funding and housing infrastructure funding and DCMS funding for various projects such as active travel, digital connectivity and infrastructure upgrades, either under delivery or already delivered. And this is also underlined by Homes England's large-scale investment into Burgess Hill and Mid Sussex. If you haven't done so, I do encourage you to watch back the February Real Estate Live session. New slide, please, Chloe. And what does partnership working look like? Well, I really like this photo from one of our master planning sessions where a multitude of people came together to work on the Northern Arc Master Plan led by Homes England. And this photo just demonstrates one of a series of sessions that were also held out on site on the ground. And this photo demonstrates that when you generally work in partnership, you can achieve great things, such as the delivery of the high quality Northern Arc Master Plan, which was delivered at very quick speed for the mutual benefit of all involved. Thank you, James.
Thank you very much, Nathan. That was really interesting and a great start to the session. So now I'm going to turn to Rachel. And so Rachel I've got a few questions for you. Maybe we can run through and just talk about your business and Mid Sussex. So your business chose to relocate to Mid Sussex. So I wonder if you can just let us know why Delphi chose the region, and what in particular is special about the area that helped to make you so successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that don't know, Adelphi is a manufacturing company. We're based in Hayward Heath in the Mid Sussex region. We moved from London in the 1980s. And since that time, we've exponentially grown. I think when we moved here, we had 18 employees, and now it's close to 100. And the group turnover has just increased exponentially as well. A lot of that's down to the region that we find ourselves in now. I guess the first major benefit to us is the excellent local transport links. Road, rail and air. We're, for example, 15 minutes from Gatwick Airport, less than an hour from London by train, and less than 10 miles from the M23. We always advertise this on our website and other digital channels, so potential business partners know how easily accessible we are. Another advantage of the Mid Sussex region, especially evident today, is the extensive improvements made by local redevelopment projects. There's a wealth of more cosmopolitan facilities, hotels, restaurants, cafes, bars. We often host customers, prospects, potential business partners, agents, and the quality of your hosting is obviously vital for businesses of all sizes, to sort of help you nurture those connections and ultimately win the business. So we do find Mid Sussex a region to be proud of. Our trademark, warm welcome, that we're very proud of, has to be matched by the places we choose to host. I'd also stress that the Mid Sussex region includes a highly skilled local supply chain and a highly skilled local workforce. The high recruitment potential of the area especially relates to Gen Z employees, those born between 1997 and 2012. I think the latest research shows that over 25% of the workforce will be made up by Gen Z employees within the next 5 years. So for businesses of all sizes, future-proofing the business and attracting the next generation of talent means ensuring recruitment appeal for this more unique audience. Graduates and Gen Z employees, we're finding, often don't want to travel to big cities for work anymore. The lure of the London lifestyle has been diluted by those more cosmopolitan facilities that we're finding more and more prevalent in Mid Sussex. Many of our own employees at Adelphi actually travel out of London to work in this region now. We also make the most of apprenticeship opportunities linking with local colleges. There's a real pool of undiscovered local talent. So whenever a new vacancy or a new opportunity arises, we've got access to that talent at the click of a button, at the picking up of a phone.
Brilliant. So you touched there on kind of infrastructure and something around the sort of culture. And I guess I'd like to sort of explore that a little bit more in terms of, what is it about the culture in Mid Sussex that helps with that in terms of, as you said, the kind of more cosmopolitan feel. What are the particular aspects and elements of that really help you?
Absolutely. We found that there's a really vibrant networking culture within Mid Sussex. Local business associations, it's a really cost-effective way to connect with other local businesses, potential partners, potential suppliers. We're ourselves part of the Hayward Heath Business Association. It's a nominal monthly fee, really, and we found there regular newsletters and networking events in person and virtually, such as this even, really sort of support your journey of business growth and provide you many opportunities that you wouldn't have if you weren't part of that. It can really help fill skills gaps within the business, either your existing team members attending and upskilling themselves, or connecting your team with other sort of industry professionals who can consult for you. So, for example, my marketing team last Friday attended the Growth by Design workshop locally, and the hosts were offering free website SEO consultations. So you really have to be in it to win it if you're not at those events. But luckily, they are really prevalent throughout Mid Sussex. We also make the most of entering local awards. So you've got Made in the South East, Mid Sussex Applauds, Sussex Business Awards, and more of those. Providing that great opportunity to demonstrate that you're a real leader in your field.
Fantastic. That sounds like a really exciting place to be. Just want to then sort of turn to one of the things that Nathan was obviously picking up on, which is about sustainability. Can you just give us a kind of overview of how important sustainability is to you in kind of decision making around the business? Of
course, it's really a primary decision-making factor now for our customers. and amongst potential employees, as discussed earlier with the recruitment potential. So it therefore has to be a primary decision-making factor in our business strategy as well. So we've done a lot of development personally on our site, and we always, as with discussed with the networking, we're always pleased to welcome other local businesses and those interested in the region to our site to see what can be achieved. I think it often makes sense to see something in person and hear about how it's worked for somebody else before committing to that investment yourself. So, for example, our site includes rainwater harvesting, solar panels, air source heat pumps, evaporative cooling, etc., etc. And as well as that positive environmental impact, they've also generated sort of measurable financial returns for our business as well.
Well, that's really exciting to hear. It's great that you seem to be really quite forward thinking in terms of your kind of sustainability practices, which is excellent. Finally, just to sort of wrap up this initial introductory bit, have you got any top tips for the companies looking at Mid Sussex as a location?
I guess the number one thing to say from our experience is that you have to be in it to win it. So there's a real sort of Mid Sussex community spirit, the thriving local networks, top quality local talent. The area is really attracting more and more businesses and partnership opportunities every day. So yeah, I would just say to all businesses in the area, whatever size, sign up to your local business association, enter the award, reach out to the connection that you think could be sort of mutually beneficial. The area is really characterised by a kind of pay it forward attitude amongst local businesses. I've certainly never been refused a connection request from local networking. I guess the fact that I've been invited to speak sort of shows the success of the Mid Sussex business concept. We're now starting to host networking events as well as attending them. So yeah, I guess my top tip would be in it to win it. Excellent,
sold. I think I'm moving down. Okay, so we're going to move on now to Suzanne from Vale Williams. So Suzanne's going to talk to us about Project Newton, which is really my kind of area of interest, which is a proposed science and technology park at Burgess Hill. So Suzanne, if you could explain a little bit about the concept and reasoning for the proposed science and technology park, that'd be great.
Great, well, thank you very much, and delighted to be invited onto the panel. So thank you both to Real Estate Live, but also to Mid Sussex. Just for a bit more of an introduction, I'm a partner at Vale Williams, and I'm leading their Gatwick region in terms of all things planning, which gives me a great opportunity to work in partnership with Mid Sussex on a number of projects, but particularly leading on the Science Technology Park, this very unique and bespoke opportunity in Mid Sussex. So thank you for the opportunity. So what is the Science Park and what's its concept? Well, it kind of goes back to 2014 when Coastal Capital Local Enterprise Partnership identified that there was a gap in the region and worked very closely on their strategic economic plan to try and identify how that best might be brought forward. And then the Mid Sussex, as part of their district plan that was adopted in 2018, identified a broad location for a science and technology park. And since then, the Project Newton team, also known as Burgess Hill Science Technology Park, we've all been working behind the scenes collectively with a number of key stakeholders to bring forward our exciting opportunity in sight. So it's given us a great platform to be able to work with Nathan and his team in terms of the regeneration and economy, but also with the policy team behind the site allocations DPD. So we're a lot of joint working, a lot of partnerships. So hopefully that's why we've been invited onto the panel. I'd like also to say that we're really fortunate, and in that the partnership working has meant that we've just received the thumbs up from the inspector in terms of the allocation at SA9, which is fantastic news, and that's due to be determined by and hopefully endorsed by the councillors tomorrow evening at full council. But it basically has also led us to a position where actually the Science and Technology Park received no objections as part of the site allocations process. So for all of those that have had the joy of the planning system, you'll appreciate that that's quite unusual. So we're very grateful for that position. So the only other, I think, part in terms of the concept that's really helpful is Mid Sussex, as part of their district plan, identified what does the science park look like? And we've been using your UKSPA definition, James, collectively to identify what that might look and feel like. And so that gives us really key threads, I think, about what that end development might look like. So it encourages, as you would expect, business support in a high growth environment. looks at innovation, green technology, but also supporting the things that Rachel's been talking about in terms of incubation and knowledge-based industry. So a really fantastic platform and opportunity for the wider region. I just wondered if it might help at that point if we're able to just show slide 1, and I'm sure that this is a common theme that will come back in everybody's presentations, but this just might be helpful to identify where our site is in terms of the Science Technology Park, which is the red-lined area. Also, the extensions that have been proposed at the Bolney Industrial Estate. So you can see we nestle very successfully next to an existing thriving industrial area. And then also, as no Graham will come on to talk about, but the Northern Arc, which is identified there on the east that you can see. And I should explain that the Science Technology Park is being brought forward by 2 clients and 2 landowners, Waterford Trading Company and Decorah Southern Limited. And yet that's the entirety of the red site, as well as other land holdings adjacent. But what's important is that also one of them is the successful party behind the delivery of the hub, which I know that we'll talk about, I'm sure, later. But you can see on that plan, I think, quite nicely how all of the elements that are part of the district plan and the site allocations document fit nicely together. Thank you. That's probably slide 1 done.
Thank you very much for that, Suzanne. So just as a sort of follow-up question then, just sort of delve into more detail, I guess just talking about the Science Technology Park and its offer, if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, we're really fortunate. We have 49 hectares or 121 acres, and my business agents use square feet and I use square meters, so apologies for the switching between both. But yeah, we're 49 hectares, which again, it gives us a unique critical mass and unique scale within the region to provide this Science and Technology Park. I think if we use slide 2 now, and I'll just talk a little bit, this is a preview to the master plan. It's actually available in our positioning document, which is a public document. So I think Real Estate Live will put the link in so you can see more. But just to give you an overview, it's obviously an illustrative plan at this stage. We've obviously just secured allocation, but it just gives a nice flavour of kind of what we're anticipating that the science park might look like and could look like, particularly in relation, as I say, to Bolney, the hub and the Northern Arc. We're looking at approximately 1.3 million square feet of business floor space with another 87,000 square feet of ancillary. And that just basically, I think, shows the sense of place and product that we're looking to produce. It's got a heart, you can see its central heart there in terms of around the ponds and the wooded area, which is an existing feature of the site. We're then looking to bring in these ancillary uses that make sure that we're giving a great sense of place and belonging. So you have somewhere that you'll be able to buy a coffee and have incubation space and also, a little shop and a creche and also a hotel environment. So hopefully it becomes quite a holistic and coherent science technology park. So I think that's really important. The illustrative master plan that we've been working on at this stage is an indicator of about 2,500 to 4,500 jobs, which again is a fantastic opportunity, both for Mid Sussex, but also the wider region. And hopefully you'll see there's it's a high quality led environment, whilst sense of place and public realm is really important. And at the moment, we've got an indicative figure of about 40% landscaping working around those existing figures. So hopefully that helps and gives a sneak preview to kind of what the offer is of the science park and where we're heading. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Suzanne. That's really interesting, and it's really interesting to see how much space is being dedicated to the ancillary side of things. I think that's a major challenge for science and technology parks in general. In these days of mixed mode working, hybrid working, trying to provide those facilities that draw people onto a campus and promote the kind of the healthy nature of working is really, really fantastic. So just kind of alongside that, thinking about the location and how it sort of works in terms of connectivity, and particularly thinking about sustainability and Mid Sussex sustainability strategy. How are you kind of weaving sustainability into the connectivity around the site?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, again, one of the really great opportunities that we've had is to work with Mid Sussex in terms of the evolution of their strategy. So both at Vale Williams and as the project team, we've been party to various drafts and how that might work. So that's been a really great opportunity. And reflects again Rachel's point about being an open door. I think for us, when Nathan talks about the 3 key pillars of their strategy, the people, place and partnership, they're exactly what we're hoping to achieve in terms of the Science and Technology Park. So, in terms of people, we're looking to be a green light in terms of inward investment to the area and working alongside all of those parties on the panel and wider in terms of an inward investment. Graham will go on to talk about an update on the Northern Arc, but there's 3,500 homes there of working population that are immediately adjacent to the Northern Arc. I think it's something like we've got a 40 to 50,000 population within a cycle distance of the Science Park. And we've got 1,500 immediately adjacent within a very short walking distance. So connectivity across all of those developments in that area is going to be critical for us. We've been working, as you heard, very closely with West Sussex County Council Highways Authority, National Highways, and the local authority in terms of how is our connectivity strategy and mobility strategy linked to existing infrastructure, and that being provided by the growth programme. So all of those intrinsic links and connectivity that I think are at the heart of the sustainable economic strategy are really important to us. I've talked a little bit about our sense of place, but again, it's a cluster of opportunity for us to build on Bolney, Northern Arc, the Northern Arc employment designation, and the other areas around in terms of the residential, which is, as you all experience, science parks, often you don't have the residential balance when you have the economic growth. So that's really helpful for us. And I think, again, just reiterating the partnership, we are already in discussions with academia in terms of the opportunity, in terms of an allocation, working with other local authorities and the local authority at various hats on in terms of policy and regeneration and the development management, of course, which is process still to come. Working with existing and new businesses in terms of the opportunity we're bringing to the area, but more importantly also the infrastructure that's going to be needed to require to develop a site of 49 hectares in this location. So it's really important for us. And also, again, going back to the decision on the 29th, so tomorrow in terms of council, one of the key themes for us is working with our local county and parish members and local residents and stakeholders to make sure that this is a success for all. So I think, all of those elements really important to us, and we're delighted to be part of the strategy.
Excellent. Thank you, Suzanne. And actually sort of mentioning there the Northern Arc segues quite nicely, although apologies to Graham, I actually missed Graham in the running order, so Graham was supposed to be third in the running order, so thank you, Suzanne, for jumping in slightly ahead of schedule. But yeah, if we can segue across to Graham from Homes England, talking about Northern Arc. So Northern Arc is Homes England's flagship project, so I wonder if you can just give us an update on current progress and talk a little bit about employment opportunities that are being created.
Yes, thanks, James, and no problem. I was prepared anyway in any event. Usually come last in the race, but not to worry. And I think, thanks for putting the slides up, Chloe. I think just really sort of bouncing off what Rachel said, I think it's a fantastic example of the ideal combination of getting the right product in the right place at the right time, and Adelphi coming in to Burgess Hill and obviously expanding over time. It's a really good case study of what we're all trying to achieve here. Creating a great place to live and work. So just in terms of the Northern Arc, Homes England is a government agency, and we are the landowner of the Northern Arc development. We just go to the next slide, please, Chloe. Just by way of a summary, the site extends to accommodate around about 3,500 homes. Around about 977 are on site or contracted at the moment, and in line with affordable housing policy of MSDC, we're delivering 30% affordable housing across the scheme, and a relatively small contributor to employment, certainly in the context of the Science Park and the work that Rachel's doing. We have a 5-hectare employment site, which we just started to market through Thomas Lister & Co. And that lies to the west of the site. And I'll show you that on a plan in 2 seconds. And just to say that the site is underway. We've got Countryside that are busy building out at the moment. They should have their first occupations, first residents moving in through their affordable housing provider, Sage, in about a month or so's time. And actually, the Countryside scheme is delivering 50% affordable housing, so they're going beyond policy, which is great in terms of a contribution to the local community. So we can just go to slide 2, please. That's great. So this is just a plan of the Northern Arc. The slides that Rachel was showing, and sorry, Suzanne was showing, were on the west on the left-hand side of the scheme that we got here. You can see in purple a sort of a road that's snaking through the whole development. As far as we've got progressed so far, we've actually built the bottom left-hand side of the road, that smooth curve, and we're busy completing at the top right-hand side, the other part of that sort of L-shaped dog leg, which connects into the yellow road. So we're making big and good progress in terms of putting the infrastructure in and developing the parcels off the back of that. So I talked about the first residents moving into phase 1A, which is Freaks Farm, which is on the right-hand side in the light yellow colour. And phase 1B, which sort of wraps around that phase, is going to be developed out by Bellway. They received Reserve Matters consent to their scheme 2 or 3 weeks ago now from committees, which is great news. Just working on the finer details of that before we conclude the contract, and I expect them to be starting probably in around about August, September. So that's sort of movement on the eastern side. We'll be putting in a bridge over the river Adur, which connects with the yellow line and the pink purpley line. So that'll be a bridge spanning over, and the spans for that are actually going in at the end of July. So there'll be a huge crane will be arriving on site and providing some really positive and strong construction activity, and that will be a link into those 2 sections of highway. We're also working on the planning application for the central section now. So that's the sort of bit of spaghetti that runs along the middle of the scheme. That's the central spine road, and that's a very, very major piece of infrastructure compared to the 2 elements that we've done thus far. Hoping for Reserve Matters this financial year and then making a start next year. And off the back of that, we'll then release the next phases of development, shown on here as phases 2, 3 and 4. We've also got out to market phase 1D. We've got some developers that are interested in that, and we are remarketing a small SME site at the bottom, which is marked as P1.10. That's 34 homes, and that will appeal to hopefully some small local investors. The next phase of commercial development will be phase 1E, and as I mentioned, that's on the left-hand side of the screen that you can see, and we've marketed through Thomas Lister & Co. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of detail on the 2 bits of infrastructure that we're putting in at the moment. The Western Link Road, you can see on the left-hand side, that's almost complete, should be finished by the end of the summer. And then the Eastern Bridge and Link Road, again, almost complete, should be finished by the end of this calendar year, including that bridge link that I mentioned. And that will allow then Countryside to take construction and sales traffic off Isaacs Lane and to follow the route through and then access the scheme from the top of the site. Next slide, please. Just in terms of visibility of what's going on, obviously these are all construction sites, so it's really hard for any residents, for anybody that's interested in what we're doing at Northern Arc to see at any degree of scale. So we've got some pre-programmed drones that fly every month, and this is just a snapshot of the drone footage that is flying over the Countryside scheme. It's really interesting footage, and when you can see them once a month, you can see the drastic progress being made by the developers and also by our contractors, Sisk and Jackson's, on the highway and road network. So if you go into our website, you'll be able to see those in a lot more detail. Really fascinating seeing the fly-throughs and seeing the progress. Next slide, please. So just in terms of keying into the main theme of this discussion, employment and skills, I think there are 3 strands really in terms of our contribution to employment. The scheme obviously is delivering a substantial amount of on-site employment through the construction activities. We'll be building for probably another 10 to 12 years, and that will include both construction of highways and utilities, largely being undertaken by ourselves, and then, of course, the construction of the principally residential development, local centres and the employment sites. So that's, let's say, short to medium term contribution to employment, particularly locally, through the construction side. And then longer term, we've got employment being generated through the community uses. So there are going to be, I think, 3 schools on site, or 3 schools on site. We've got 1 secondary school, 2 primary schools. So there'll be hundreds of school teachers in there and all the associated industries that back up that. And then we'd have the local centres, the neighbourhood centres that provide shops and retail opportunities. and again the staff that are employed there. And then further afield, and really, I guess, pretty small beer compared with Suzanne Science Park. But as I say, we've got this site 1E, which is out to the market at the moment for 5 hectares of development. That, in old money, is around about 9.9 acres. And the outline consent is for around about 24,000 square feet of employment development. My colleague David Robson, who's on the call, is here to take any specific questions on that, or alternatively, by all means, contact Thomas Listers for a bit more detail. And then just turning to the final slide, again, sort of referencing the main theme of this study today, we already made mention of people, places, and partners. I think the final slide, next one after this. We can beat that. We've got 5, I think, parts of the metric and the matrix here. Obviously, Homes England as landowner. MSD is an absolutely fantastic partner in terms of planning. Probably one of the best relationships I've had with the local authority in the 30 years that I've been in the business is with Sally and Judy and Nathan and colleagues. A really good working relationship that gets things done and gets development on the ground, but is also reflective of the needs of the other 3 parts of this equation, which are the developers who build the houses and the employment opportunities for us, then the investors that provide the funding, and then, of course, the end users, which sort of brings us back to Rachel's comment in terms of Adelphi and the success of being in the right place at the right time with the right product means that we create jobs and we create places where people want to live and work. And I think for me, I think the real success of the Northern Arc and the Science Park will be happy residents that can live at the Northern Arc and that can cycle or walk or use other means of accessing the Science Park for their daily employment. And what a great way of combining the two. So that's the end of my presentation, and I hope that was helpful, and we'll be able to take some questions later on. Thanks, James.
Thank you very much, Graham. That's really interesting. Such a huge project there. I'd say I'd be interested to sort of pick up on this. You talked there about the relationship with the district council and how that's really helped with the sort of progressing of the project. Do you want to just talk a little bit more then about the culture of partnership working and how that's sort of impacted on the project as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I've only been involved in the project for the last 6 months, so I can't really wear the laurels of those that precede me. But the evidence of the partnership workings evidence really from the outset. I think it's fair to say that whilst the Northern Arc scheme had been progressing from a planning perspective, it had stalled due to the very heavy levels of infrastructure that we're incurring, which aren't usually attractive to developers and landowners. So Homes England was able to intercede, and through that mechanism, you can see the substantial amounts of infrastructure that are going into the ground now. We have a regular, I think probably every couple of weeks, we have meetings with the MSDC planners, and the scheme is so active in terms of the planning. So it's absolutely fantastic that we've got a reserve matters in place for 3,500 homes, but that's only one very high level part of the equation. It's delivering the detail and carrying out appropriate consultations so that residents and developers and investors and other consultees are engaged in that process. And it's a fine grain, which I think is the key to delivery, particularly in terms of quality. And that's an ongoing and fantastic relationship, as I say.
Excellent. Right, so I'd like to open this out now to a kind of full panel discussion. And as I mentioned at the top, we really encourage participation from the audience. So if anybody listening does have a burning question, please drop those into the Q&A. I can see there are a few questions in the Q&A already. So I'll pick up on those and we'll start working our way through those, and hopefully we'll get some more dropping in as we go. So Graham, actually coming back to you, first question there is then about partnerships again. But it's in this instance talking about opportunities for small consultancy firms or developers or architects who are not in the pre-registered framework, and are there opportunities for them to get involved?
Yeah, I'm turning to developers first. The larger developments, over I think probably about 100 homes across Homes England's portfolio, will require developers to enter into a framework agreement with us. but that is a continuous market engagement exercise so that any large developer can come and join that panel, subject to appropriate vetting, to make sure that they are capable of delivering to that scale. So that's called the DPS. And if you Google DPS and Homes England, you'll be able to find access to that. In terms of smaller opportunities, again, you have to be a member of the DPS, but we have tailored a section of the DPS to smaller developers. So, for example, we've got this 34-unit scheme coming up at the western end. Again, if we've got small developers on the line or agents that have small developer clients, if you Google DPS and Homes England, you'll be able to go on there as a small developer and will then be able to bid for that site. There will be other sites coming up during the course of the development. So that's it in terms of developers. In terms of work activities for professionals, again, we do run a national panel. That's a panel that we run through a competitive process every 3 or 4 years. So it closes and opens, and that covers national activities. So I think if we've got people on the call that are interested in providing relatively small levels of consultancy to builders, developers, it's probably worthwhile them getting in touch with those developers and employers that are active in the area. And that's probably more where you pick up the phone to maybe, for example, Countryside or On Site. They may have services that they require locally. That's a case of contacting the developer direct. Thanks.
Excellent. And then, not to get you hogging all the limelight here, Graham, but there's a follow-up question there, I guess, from about Northern Arc, just very specifically asking about the range of tenures that are currently earmarked for the development, and in particular, if there's any plans to include build to rent.
To my knowledge, there aren't any plans to include build to rent. BTR is a closed programme now. And that said, the scheme is delivering affordable housing in accordance with policy compliance. So that is a combination of sale housing, PRS, affordable rent, intermediate rent, shared ownership, that sort of product. So all in compliance in terms of the local authority housing needs. I'm sure that the scheme will evolve. There's a good 10 or 15 years of the development, and it may be that new tenures filter in through local policy over that length of time.
Excellent. That was a nice, concise one. Okay, so we've got a really easy question next, which is talking about potential UK recession. So I don't know if anybody wants to particularly take that. I might turn to Nathan initially. So the question is, given the current news around potential recession, does Mid Sussex believe it can sustain resilience and continue to grow its economy in a sustainable manner?
Thank you, James. I think actually Graham, Rachel and Suzanne have done a great job already of answering this question. So I'm probably going to be repeating a lot of what they already said, but I think Mid Sussex are in a really good position. The offer in Mid Sussex is very good. Anyone that's ever sort of lived or worked around here knows that we live in a very beautiful part of the world, on the doorstep of the South Downs and the South Downs National Park and the High Weald area of outstanding natural beauty. We have excellent connectivity that Rachel touched on, and that's both physical and digital. As the name Mid Sussex suggests, we're located smack bang in the middle of Sussex, but also broadly midway between London and Brighton, on the Brighton main line, with direct connections along the east and west coast rail services. And also we're right on the strategic road network with direct linkages to the M23 and M25, and Gatwick Airport is on our doorstep. So we have excellent connectivity, and we also have full gigabit connectivity already installed across the district as well. So I think in terms of a place, the offer is very, very good, and I think that will help us. And it also helps that we're a growing area as well. And as Suzanne touched on, it's employment balanced with housing, and we are developing sustainable communities. So and we're very open to that, providing we can deliver sustainable communities. And ultimately, we're a place of quality, affordable premises. And I think, given our location, it really does represent genuine value for money. And in terms of resilience towards recession, not only have we got the offer, we've also got a very sort of resilient, broad-based economy with existing clusters in engineering and advanced manufacturing, med tech, life sciences, agri-tech, and computer games development, particularly with Brighton on our doorstep, and working with the universities down there. And these are all growth sectors that we are committed to support and aid their development. And I think finally, we have good people. Rachel touched on this earlier. We're home to some of the most skilled and talented and productive people in the UK. And we've got a highly productive, young and skilled workforce. Again, as Rachel said, that's really important for them to come through. And we're an area of entrepreneurs as well. We're a growth area for business startups with a higher proportion of our population, local population, setting up new businesses in Mid Sussex and elsewhere across the UK. And our 5-year business survival rate exceeds the UK average. And I think finally, just to sort of touch on people, place, and partnerships, we value our relationships and working collaboratively with others, and we're open for business. Working with other local authorities and the Coast to Capital Local Enterprise Partnership. We're very open to working with others, and for mutual benefit of all. In a nutshell, if you haven't already, I encourage you to visit Opportunity Mid Sussex and the Digital Mid Sussex websites for more details. And I'm sure Joe or someone can put those details on the chat function.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nathan. I think that's a very positive message there. I don't know if anybody else wants to pick up, if anybody else has got anything to add around kind of future-proofing and resilience against recession.
All I was going to add, James, if I may, is that we're working long-term, as Graham said. We're 10 to 15-year timeframes, and I think that's really important. Many of us on the call remember the previous recessions and the cyclical nature of what happens. But I think the fact that we've got a long-term strategy in the site allocations DPD is really important. And as Graham is proving, that it's delivery of those really key projects as well. It's coming out of the ground. So that's all I would add.
Sorry, James, you're on mute.
Thank you, Nathan. I knew it would happen eventually. Suzanne, just to say, if we can stick with you for the next question, which is referring back to the Science Technology Park. And so there's a question about how people who are interested in learning more, or potential occupiers even, register their interest. And we do have a kind of supplementary question there actually from John Spencer, who's a local SME, and asking about contact names and how does he get in touch.
Yeah, thank you, James. And thank you for the question. As I've said, we're at allocation stage, so it's early stages, albeit there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, but we're now looking to go to the new phase after the 29th. The next steps for us are looking for a hybrid planning permission, so we'll be working again closely in partnership with Sussex to get to the next stage. We've got quite a long time frame, but I would recommend that people right now get in contact with us through Vale Williams as an initial start. And I believe Joe can provide my email contact details and that of my colleague Andrew Osborne that's assisting in the project. But please do reach out. We're here, as we say, it's an exciting new adventure and the start of a new chapter. So please do get in contact if there's anything that we can do to help.
Perfect. Thank you, Suzanne. So the next question then. And I think, again, this is targeted squarely at Nathan, just talking about the District Council and how Mid Sussex seems to be really good at attracting funding and support for projects. So as a relatively small district authority, how do you manage to sort of punch above your weight so effectively?
Thanks, James. Yeah, it is true. We do punch above our weight, and we continue to strive to do so. And I think the reason for that is the partnership that we do. And I think the partnership working is key, such as, for example, making the case for funding. And I talked earlier about the scope of influence and casting this out widely and focus on the achievement of shared goals in making the cases for funding, which does encourage a lot of investment to the area. And I think one of the reasons that's so attractive is it's about adding value rather than duplication of other interventions. And I think that aids the concept at the start and the business case later down the track. So I think working in partnership, working with so many others, I think in a nutshell, really does aid the case for making the funding. And I think it also helps that Mid Sussex have got a really good track record on delivery as well. I think the Place and Connectivity Programme, which was discussed at the February session, is a really good example. We work with West Sussex on that particular project, and third-party organisations such as Network Rail in the delivery. And from the approval of the full business case in December 2018 to now, we've delivered over 14 kilometres of improvements, with projects still delivering on the ground. So I think that really demonstrates that when you work in partnership with others to deliver those, to deliver the funding, to secure the funding and actually deliver on the back of it. I think that's also encourages more funding to come into the area when you've got a really good, when funders know you've got a really good track record on delivery. And I think also, another example of that is the work we do with Homes England. I think the early example that Graham touched on is putting together the framework to enable the planning applications to be submitted and determined in really very, very quick time scales. The slide I showed earlier about the partnership working with everyone around the table in a big room, and that was repeated on site as well. Some really good site visits. I think that that really sort of demonstrates to others what we do as an authority. We've got an open door. We're open for business, and essentially, I think the local authority, we get stuff done, and I think that's attractive to people. So I think that's why we're punching above our weight.
Excellent. I've just picked up on a question, Nathan, that's come through the chat, so you probably haven't seen it. It's not in the QA, but I'll read it out and see if we can get some response for that. So it's a question from Peter Rayner at DMH Stallard Planning. And so he's asking if you can address what's happening in Brighton and Hove town centre. So the question is, much of the development on the fringe of town was predicated on improvements to the town centre, which seem to have stalled somewhat. I don't know if that's something that you have any knowledge of, or you can sort of bring anything to bear on.
We are continuing to work with the developers of the town centre to bring that forward. I think what's happened to the town centre is widely replicated across the country. There's some very, very difficult economic circumstances which have unfortunately stalled the development for the time being. But we are still working very, very closely with the developers of the site to bring it forward, and we continue to explore funding opportunities to bring it forward.
Apologies there for my complete lack of local geographical knowledge there. Obviously, that's Burgess Hill Town Centre as to Brighton and Hove. Apologise, I live in the north. I think that finalises or gets us through all the questions that have been posed either through the Q&A or the chat. And we do have a few minutes remaining. So, I mean, I've got a couple of questions from wearing my Science Park Association hat, just to ask about. So you touched upon the kind of sectors which are our strengths within the region. I don't know if there's any plans for the Science Park in particular to have a kind of sectoral strength or focus, or whether you're looking at a kind of generalised science park that will address many different sectors.
Would you like to take that, Nathan?
Suzanne, yeah, if you want to come in on that.
No specific sectors at the moment. There's obviously been some initial discussions in terms of the need for the science park and those types of sectors that are already here and that would be interested in coming to relocate to the region. But definitely much more of a general science technology park based on the definition. It's a very, very open definition, which is extremely helpful for those, I think, those emerging sectors and tech sectors that probably with traditional employment planning wouldn't have been identifying. So, much more of a general science and tech park. But yes, we would need to refer back to the UKSPA definition in order to mould kind of with the planners what they would be acceptable on that science and tech park, if that's any help, James.
Absolutely, and yes, certainly within our membership we have a wide variety of parks, some with really, really strong sectoral focuses and some with really broad, and I think there's no right answer to that, but obviously it's really key to make sure that it's sort of focusing on some of the regional strengths there. I mean, I guess the other thing sorry, Suzanne, do you want to come in on that?
I was just going to say that, again, going back to the timelines for delivery, we are a 10-year plus delivery. So we're able to have the opportunity to be more market and demand led. So it's basically a long-term strategy. So what might happen under phase one might be very different to what happens in the potential future phase. So I think that's one of the benefits of having, like Graham saying, about having a very large strategic project in principle and then being able to move with what happens in terms of the market and demand, which I'm absolutely sure is, other science parks around the UK, that's how many of them would like to be able to be that flexible and that agile.
Absolutely, I think you're right that it's a fast changing world, and it's really hard to predict what's going to be happening even in 2 or 3 years time, let alone in 10 years time. So yeah, absolutely right to be flexible on that. I guess the other question, which that might come to Suzanne or might come to any of you, I guess, in terms of connectivity to academia. So many science parks particularly have strong links to a particular academic association or a research institute, where there obviously is a strong academic presence in the region. What are the sort of potentials there for linking with with local academia. I think in particularly around sort of University of Sussex, who run quite strong innovation programs.
Yeah, thank you. Initially, when we were discussing, obviously from the Coastal Capital original concept, there was a lot of discussion about what the science park would look like and building on the strengths and the benefits we have in the region, including the university presence. And I would say that initial discussions, as I say, we're at an allocation stage and everything's illustrative, but the heart of the matter is to be able to utilise all of those within the region to build a better, stronger science tech park. I would say at the moment, the incubation unit, the work that the Coastal Capital are doing in terms of grow on space, startup, incubator, entrepreneurship, all of that's going to be really important to the science park. So academia will have an important role to play, but clearly in other science parks, it's the physical entity rather than necessarily the intellectual entity. And that's a discussion in terms of as the science park evolves, if that's any help.
I think it's also worth noting the work that the universities are doing in the local area, such as through the RISE programme, which is looking to develop the skills of local companies and to bring companies on. So the two universities are very, very active in this local area in terms of bringing companies on and offering them advice. And it's this open innovation, I think, is a real asset to this local area where the universities are so willing to get involved. And the RISE programme is a free programme. It's open to all SMEs across the local area. And I think that sort of involvement that local universities have in this area is a real asset to the area. And I personally can see some of that really coming through to the Science and Tech Park and utilising some of this incubation space that you're talking about, Suzanne. I think that's a real boon to the area. So I'm very encouraged by the work that the universities are doing around Mid Sussex and the wider region.
Fantastic. Well, that all sounds really exciting. I'm really interested to see how the project progresses and the linkages between the Science Tech Park and the housing and the infrastructure that will sit around that. I think are really, really key, and we'll see more and more of that kind of across the UK as the kind of skills gap and sustainability become really key points. We're coming really close to time, so I'm just going to throw it open for each of you just to kind of sum up, if you'd like to, in 30 seconds, what we've discussed today before we close. So if I can start with Nathan and just do a very, very brief summary.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, I mean, I'm very encouraged to hear the positive words from the panel today. I mean, it's I'm thankful they all agreed to appear on the panel today and very willing to do so. And I think what it does is demonstrate the partnership work and the Mid Sussex are doing. It's a great place to live and work. It's developing at a rate of knots. It will be a modern, sustainable it is, and it will become more of a modern, sustainable place to live. And I think we've seen that today. And Mid Sussex is open for business. Do check out those websites that I mentioned earlier, Opportunity Mid Sussex and Digital Mid Sussex. I think then you'll get a real sense of what Mid Sussex has to offer. And really, Mid Sussex can only achieve that by working in partnership with others. And the three members of the panel today and others, and if any local business or resident wishes to discuss any of these elements with us, our phones always drop us a line and we can discuss things through. We can meet with businesses, we can meet with small to medium enterprises that we've spoken about today if they are interested in opportunities in Mid Sussex. So yeah, do get in contact. We're open for business.
Nathan, I think that was an excellent summary, and actually I think we're running very close to time, so I'm going to just wrap up here and just say thank you very, very much to our four panelists. So to Nathan Spilsted, Suzanne Holloway, Rachel Birrell-Gray, and Graham Hislop, thank you very much. I'm going to hand back to Joe, who will do the final wrap up for us. Thank you and goodbye.
Welcome back to me. Thank you. I've been listening into that. I'm typing up some notes, and it was an absolutely fascinating discussion. And it was lovely to hear so much more about the progress that's taking place on the growth programme to date, and also that future in terms of the Science and Tech Park, and just how much Adelphi has benefited from being in a region which I love and which I look forward to seeing grow in the future. So thank you all for a great discussion. Before we leave, I just wanted to make you aware of the sessions we're taking place right now. So we're about to head off to Waltham Forest at REL to hear how the borough is creating a new industrial approach for investors for future opportunities. And after that, we have a building garden community session where we're talking about how to embed culture in a new community. If you can't make a session or our future sessions after enjoying this one, don't worry. They will all be live on YouTube in the future. And for those of you joining us today, we will be sending out a newsletter with all the relevant materials and links and contact details in it. So you will receive everything in one nice, easy to digest package. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you and goodbye.